We make sure to be where news is happening,
both locally and globally.
For the latest business news, stay with us.
From South Africa to the world, we've got all your latest sporting news.
Don't miss our weather updates at every hour.
Stay tuned to News Today, Monday to Friday, from 3 to 5:30 p.m. here on SABC News.
Yeah, very good morning to you. This is the Newsroom show. There is Kenda Mahamati. Elvis is here as well. I'm, of course, here in Nyansa. Yes, it's the day before the holiday season really kick into high gear here in South Africa, Elvis.
Well, it's the 15th of December. This is the day when people say, kiddies have my pass.
It's over. Breaking up is what they call it. I suppose that's in construction terms. But when you're traveling, and if you're traveling around the country over the next couple of days, please be safe and adhere to the rules of the road. Of course, in the news, parliamentary ad hoc committee hearing into the affairs here at the SABC, Elvis. It's been an interesting couple of weeks, and that's why we're asking a question.
Interesting week, and that's why we're just asking you a question on the poll, but you can comment on the poll as well. The question we pose to you, are you surprised by the revelations made by the SABC board inquiry? And this is what people are saying. 159 votes thus far. 78% are saying no, they are not surprised. And 22% say yes, they are very surprised.
Well, that's an interesting take on it. Puts a whole new spin on this thing. But let's take a look at some of your tweets. You guys are tweeting us a lot, as SABC is the top 3 or 4 trending topics, I think, in the top 10 in South Africa. Ivan Wilson talks about the canary, Elvis.
And I'm not too sure if it's a yellow canary, but the canary is indeed beginning to sing, and not quite to the tune of government, says Ivan Wilson.
Zanimpilo, boy, says nothing new. When employees totally disregard management, this happens.
Well, these are some of the tweets coming through. You can still engage with us on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on the Facebook page.
Yeah, that's where we stand right now. We're counting down to about 9:30 when matters get underway. Of course, it's the final day of the inquiry today. I know you guys are tuning in to watch that, but we've got a bit of housekeeping to do, and also let's get our first news update with Elvis.
Former SABC non-executive board member Rachel Kaladas is the last witness to testify before the parliamentary inquiry into the board's fitness to hold office. The Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs says it's concerned by the loss of life as the death toll at the initiation school rises. And the United Nations Secretary General has condemned the takeover of Gambia's Independent Electoral Commission by that country's military. Very concerning matters there in the Gambia. But before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate why Kaizer Chiefs are singing struggle songs.
Oh man, you know what? It's a sad day when Kaizer Chiefs are struggling to get out of the doldrums. They've been drawing and losing, and they haven't actually done much to please their fans in the last couple of matches, I'll tell you.
Yeah, too many draws, too many draws. I'm sure that Steve Compela's got a solution that he's working on.
Well,
we definitely hope so.
Because as you know, 2 bananas can't plant a tree, but a midget can plant, or can really bury a naked man.
That's a
Let me bring out my thesaurus, and let's see if I can help Elvis with what he just said. Good morning to you. This is what we've got for you in the sports today.
That's 5 draws now in the last 7 matches for Kaizer Chiefs.
Not happy. We are here to win. A draw at Chiefs is not enough. You can imagine a loss. We've only lost 3, but too many draws. And people will tell that we're sick and tired of draws.
In the Absolute Premiership, a 0-0 draw with mid-table Bloemfontein Celtic causes more frustration for the mighty Kaizer Chiefs.
not offside here, so he's in behind the last line of defence. A one-on-one situation, Mamelodi, what a goal!
A superb strike by Percy Tau is not enough to save Mamelodi Sundowns from getting blown away by Asian champions Jeonbuk Hyundai by 4-1 at the FIFA Club World Cup.
I'm happy because we play to our standard, we play to our level. This is a very good standard, it's a very high level. The South Koreans, they show that they are Asian champions of Asia.
And Cesc Fabregas nets a beauty of a goal for Chelsea, who go 6 points clear at the top of the EPL, making 10 wins in a row.
They found a way through. Sensational goal. Brilliant. That's what Chelsea do. They hit you on the counter-attack, and they have so many legs and so many bodies going forward.
Now, all this and more I've got for you in the Sports Bulletin at 10:40. Be sure to stick around. For now, it's Elvis who's got the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this morning. Communications Minister Faith Mutambi has denied that she had tried to get the SABC to suppress news of protest and discontent. She was testifying at the parliamentary inquiry into the fitness of the SABC board to hold office. Today will be the last day for 2017 for witnesses to testify.
Since the beginning of the hearings last week, the elephant in the room has been Hlaudi Motsoeneng. Whether it was about the dysfunctionality of the board, mismanagement or censorship, his name was mentioned by almost all witnesses. But Mutambi shocked legislators when she said none of the board members, past and present, had ever complained or informed her about Motsoeneng's alleged wayward behavior.
We have had meetings, bilateral meetings, wherein the board will be reporting on their quarterly progress reports. We have had AGMs. We have had 2 meetings that we just scheduled from 9 to 21 hours, for instance, wherein we'll be discussing the operation, but none of them have ever brought that matter to my attention that he has become the law unto himself.
But members rejected her answer. Instead, they laid blame for all shenanigans at the public broadcaster squarely on her feet.
You turned a blind eye when the SABC 8 were dismissed, when there were death threats, people were being shot at, their houses were being broken into. You did not lift a finger.
The dwindling of a board from a board membership of 9 people to now 1 is not a matter that concerns you. The fact that this state-owned entity has lost in excess of 100 million rands is not your responsibility.
We've had witnesses here. A lot of witnesses, Minister, who have come before this ad hoc committee. And they have put the blame of SABC governance failure squarely on you as a minister.
Did the late Hope Zinde not write you letters to that effect, asking you questions and expressing your concerns about the behavioral tendencies of Mr. Hlaudi Motsoeneng?
The minister was also accused of being complicit in editorial decisions not to show violent protest, and she took exception to the accusation.
She's making malicious allegations that when they are not true, they are not true. Yeah, and then I won't allow her to belittle board members without facts here.
Mutambi was asked if it was a coincidence that a decision to black out violent protest was made when her constituencies in Vuwani and Malamulela were on fire. Her own fitness to be a shareholder of an institution such as the SABC was also questioned. Manilisi Tubasa, SABC News, Parliament.
Now, 6 of the 8 SABC journalists who are receiving text messages that threaten their lives say they are not intimidated. The journalists who appeared before the parliamentary inquiry on Monday have forwarded messages to the police investigators. The SABC and the ad hoc committee have condemned the threats.
As the committee started afresh, a new bombshell, one that incensed the committee.
It was brought to my attention that threats continued to be directed towards the SABC 8. Now, I regard that as an assault on Parliament.
Damning testimony by several SABC journalists. The testimony included the firing of a Polokwane journalist on the instructions of the communication minister and attempts by the Guptas to assume authority over its news division. The testimony also centered on political interference in news and Hlaudi Motsoeneng's totalitarian control of news. Just days later, a fresh threat, one not taken lightly.
The journalists actually shared their text message with me, which was sent to them, and I would like to read it to this meeting and to the people of South Africa. It says, "Traitors, protecting your white friends in Parliament who started this, telling lies about your comrades. You were warned. We don't kill blacks, but sit and watch the blood flow."
Parliamentary reporter Lukanyo Kaladas says he received the message, but remains unshaken.
We will not be swayed, we will not be threatened, that we will not be terrorized. We refuse to be terrorized by people who are hiding behind SMSs and doing all of those things. We've done nothing wrong.
Has condemned the threats.
This is not a new matter, and as a SABC, we are very clear that we are condemning anyone who might be involved in threatening them. And we are very happy that we hear that they have taken the matter to the police, and we think that the police will do a thorough investigation.
Mystery still surrounds exactly who's sending the messages. It seems, however, clear to the committee that it's people who want to prevent exposés. Nhlanhla Gahlani, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Well, as you know, we're running that poll to find out from you what do you make of what's currently happening at the SABC. There's the poll right behind you there. It says, are you surprised by the revelations made by the SABC board inquiry or during the course of this inquiry? 23% are saying no. In fact, yes, they are surprised by the revelations, and 77% are saying no, they are not surprised at all. It's 168 votes thus far. You've got 23 hours left to vote, so keep them coming on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. But it seems, Eben, as if the inquiry is ready in Parliament for us.
Yeah, it's just, it's a little bit early. Vincent Smith is busy doing setting the tone, I think, for the dates, the final day of the year. Of course, they'll reconvene in the new year. But let's go straight to Parliament now and take the live feed as matters get underway.
Parliament, except in criminal proceedings concerning a charge of perjury or a charge relating to the evidence or documents required in these proceedings. I have been informed, ma'am, that you will take the oath. Is that correct?
Good morning, Honourable Chair. Yes, I will take the oath.
So if you could repeat after me. I swear by Almighty God.
I swear by Almighty God.
That the evidence I shall give.
That the evidence I shall give.
Will be the truth.
Will be the truth.
The whole truth.
The whole truth.
And nothing but the truth.
And nothing but the truth.
Please raise your right hand and say, so help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you very much. Honourable Vanara, it's just before 9:15. Can you wrap up your business by 10, and then we'll open up to members. Honourable Killian, you'll be the first, and we'll go this way. And we'll see where it goes. We will revert to our 5 minutes per member. We'll revert to 5 minutes per member. Members are going to arrive. I have total faith that members will arrive. So by the time it gets to you, Honourable Swartz, members would have taken the opportunity. So it's going to be 5 minutes per member. We'll start with you, Killian, get to Chauke, Mem Van Dam, go all the way up, and then come and end with hopefully Mokwena when he has arrived, if he does, by the time we get to him. Having said that, sir, over to you until 10 o'clock.
Thank you, Chair. And good morning to yourself and the honourable members. Ms. Kaladas, good morning.
Good morning, Advocate Vanara, to the Honourable Chairperson and Honourable members of this committee.
Can you, for the record, just state your full particulars and give the committee a glimpse of your academic qualifications and background?
Thank you. My name is Rachel Kaladas. I was appointed as a non-executive director to the SABC board on the 25th of September 2013 until my unlawful removal on the 12th of March 2015. I'm a chartered accountant by profession, registered with SAICA as well as URBA. I manage my own practice, which focuses on public sector governance, advisory services of internal audit risk management. I chair a number of audit committees, boards across provincial and national government.
You have given this committee a statement, which is a 19-page statement. Is that correct?
That is correct, Advocate.
And you're comfortable that that statement be shared with the members of the committee?
Yes, I do.
And that statement be part and parcel of the proceedings of this committee?
I confirm so.
Just give the committee an account of what happened, of how the board dealt with the Public Protector's report.
Thank you, Advocates. If you'd allow me just to read from my statement. Despite being a board member in office at the end of September 2013, I only had sight of the Public Protector's report on the 18th of February 2014 when it was publicly released and made accessible on the website of the Public Protector. I also took the liberty of circulating the report to other board members as well as the company secretary, since we had not been furnished with this report prior to its public release. As alluded to by the Public Protector on page 10 of her report, when governance and ethics fails, the SABC board response to the provisional report was prepared by the board chairperson, Mrs. Ellen Shabalala, and her lawyers, to the exclusion of board members. This was unfortunately not an isolated incident and contributed to the dysfunctionality of the board. On the 24th of February 2014, the board met and deliberated on the report. The following is an extract from the board resolutions of that discussion, and I quote, Ms. R. Kaladas' dissent with regard to the manner and process followed in respect of the manner proposed to deal with the Public Protector's report be and is hereby noted. The chairs of the Audit, Governance and Nominations, Human Resources and Remuneration, and Social and Ethics Committee be and are hereby tasked to analyze the details included in the report of the Public Protector. A consolidated report on the outcome of the analysis of the details included in the report of the Public Protector, together with a recommendation on the actions to be taken, must be submitted to the board within 2 weeks. A special board meeting must be convened to allow the board to deliberate the submissions prior to submitting its proposal to the minister. At a board meeting held on the 31st of July 2014, the following resolution was taken regarding the consolidation of the response to the Public Protector's report. The recommendation of the Committee of Chairs in respect of the proposed response to the Public Protector's report be and is hereby noted. Mrs. K.T. Bonakele, K. Naidu, and Ms. R. Kaladas dissent on the decision to conclude the SABC's response to the Public Protector's report be and are hereby noted. Ms. T.V. Caldenas, in her capacity as Company Secretary, be and is hereby mandated to effect the changes proposed by members to the draft response to the Public Protector's report and to circulate the updated document to members prior to it being submitted to the Public Protector and the Minister. Despite this board-approved process, a legal advisory report prepared by Mkhunu attorneys dated 5th of June 2014 was distributed during and following the special in-committee board of the 9th of June 2014. I later learned that the Mkhunu report was also submitted to the Office of the Public Protector as well as to the Honourable Minister Mutambi, purportedly on behalf of the board, clearing Mr. Motsaneng of any wrongdoing. This made the board-approved process obsolete.
Let's just zoom into the Mkhunu report you're referring to. Did the board take a decision mandating any official, be it the chairperson, be it the executives, to engage the services of Mkhunu attorneys?
No, Honourable Advocate, there was no board resolution and no mandate from the board in its collective to appoint Mkhunu attorneys. Our understanding was that the chairperson had appointed them, and they were presented to the board at one point in time as being advisors to the office of the chair and then the board. But it was not a board-mandated process.
Now, you say this report gets to be circulated at the meeting of the 9th of June. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Why is it circulated at the meeting?
The manner in which it was introduced to the board was that these attorneys were engaged to provide a legal opinion to the board, and that report was supposed to have been a supplementary document to assist the board as well as the committees that were tasked to prepare their report. So our understanding was that it was initially supposed to be a resource to the board, but ultimately the board would take accountability in the compilation of the Public Protector's report. Unfortunately, with the sequence of events that later transpired, it was not so.
Now, this report gets to be circulated at the meeting. What is its status? Is it for noting, or are you expected to discuss this report?
It was presented to the board as a flyer, so members would have not had a chance to engage with the report prior to the meeting. As it was introduced as a legal opinion to be able to assist the board, so it was in a sense for noting, but also as an advisory document that the board can take into account, like it takes into account various other documents in formulating a response.
Now, you say there was a resolution by the board on how to deal with the Public Protector's report. And you mentioned, I think you are reading from an extract of the minutes, where yourself, Mr. Mavuso, and Mr. Naidu noted your objections to it. What is it that you're objecting to?
I dissented twice. The first time I dissented was in regard to the process that was followed. My personal opinion was that the board did not have a mandate in terms of legislation to review the Public Protector's report for validity. The Public Protector's report, in my opinion, had to be accepted in its entirety, or if the board members felt that they would want to refute any of the allegations or recommendation, the process to follow would have been to take it upon review. The way the board approached it was that they, especially being guided by the chairperson, was that they did not agree with the contents of the Public Protector's report in terms of the observation and recommendations made. The process of appointing each of the committees to look at the report was in essence a manner of trying to validate the observations that the Public Protector made. So I think it's completely beyond the scope of the board to re-audit the Public Protector's report, so to speak.
The minister was here yesterday testifying, and one of the issues she testified upon was the Public Protector's report. And her testimony was to the effect that she had told the board to implement the Public Protector's report. What is your response to that?
I think in the broad sense of it, there was a pronouncement that the board needed to act upon the Public Protector's report. But I think the manner in which that was done was incorrect. For example, at a meeting held on the 12th of July, whereby the minister met with the board for the first time, there were comments that were made to the effect that she had already received the Mkhunu report, despite it not having been sanctioned by the board. There was also, if you can allow me just to get to that, whereby a quote was made that the Mkhunu report should be implemented. And then there was also a comment made that at the board meeting of the 7th of July, whereby the Public Protector, one of the recommendations made was that a permanent COO should be appointed within 90 days. I think if anybody has to read that, it would mean that a COO needs to be appointed following due processes, as well as ensuring that there is, an appointment process whereby it takes into account the observations made by the public protector. But that was quoted out of context to say that then the COO must be appointed because the PP says that the COO must be appointed within 90 days, which resulted in the sense of urgency of the appointment.
Before we get to the appointment of the COO, we're still on the public protector's report. Your shareholder, with whom the board has got a shareholders' compact, gives an instruction to the board to implement the public protector's report. What you're telling us is that report we all know was not implemented. What the objective facts point out to is there was a Mchunu report. And you say this Mchunu's report, which was sourced without the board's knowledge and approval, which flew into one of your meetings for noting, was presented to the minister. Is that correct?
That's correct. If I can quote from an extract of the meeting of the 2nd of July held at the Mount Grace Hotel in Magaliesburg between the board and the Honourable Minister. In addressing the board, as is reflected in the minutes of that day's proceedings, the Honourable Minister stated that she had considered the legal report of Mchunu Attorneys Incorporated and had subjected it to a further legal opinion. Consequently, she recommended that the board must take action on the basis of the legal report she had received.
Now, the minister first gives instructions to the board to implement the public protector's report. And there is then this document that has got no status that gets to be sent to the minister. Why was it firstly sent to the minister? And secondly, in your view, was there any basis for the minister to entertain this Mchunu's report?
In my personal opinion, I think the process of the minister receiving the Mchunu report was invalid as it had not been presented at the board. There was no board resolution to the effect that the board had sanctioned this report to the minister, so it was an undue process that was followed in terms of her receiving the Mchunu report firstly. And I think secondly, the Mchunu report in essence tried to refute the claims made by the public protector, which I deem to be unlawful given the status of the legislation in this regard.
When this Mchunu's report is sent to the minister, one would expect that it would not have flown solo to the minister's office, that it would have been accompanied by the minutes of the meeting at which this document found itself. In this case, what is it that was submitted to the minister together with this Mchunu's report?
Personally, I had not had sight of the documents that the minister would have in her possession. Based on the comments that she made, she indicated that she received the legal opinion from the attorneys. Under normal circumstances, in my other experience, one would expect that to be accompanied by a covering letter from the SABC board chairperson, which would have an extract of the board resolution. As I had not had sight of that, one would have expected the company secretary and one would have reasonably expected the board chairperson to have fulfilled that compliance process in respect of the submission to the Honourable Minister.
So what you're telling the committee is that initially the minister was clear, she gave a clear instruction to the board to implement the public protector's report.
Yes.
That she was furnished with a document, we're not clear around the circumstances, and then she obtained her legal opinion, and she changed her attitude towards her initial stance. Is that what you're telling the committee?
Yes, Chair, and I think the Minister also says that she subjected it to a further legal opinion before she pronounced that she recommended to the board that action must be taken on the basis of the legal report she had received. So one got the sense that she had confidence that the Mkhunu report was the way to go.
You're reading from the minutes of, an extract from the minutes of a meeting, is that correct?
Yes, this is an extract of the resolution of the board meeting held with the Minister on the 2nd of July 2014, and these minutes were subsequently confirmed by the board as being a true reflection of those proceedings.
My understanding is that this issue of the public protector divided the board, members of the board. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
Now, those who were for the implementation of the report must have been excited when even the minister was giving instructions for its implementation. Will that be correct?
Yes, definitely.
Now, you're in a meeting where the minister is changing her stance. Now, those who were for the implementation of this resolution ordinarily will be disappointed with that stance. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Do you then raise this issue with the minister at that meeting where you just extracted the minutes of it?
I was not specifically present at that meeting of the 2nd of July, so I'm recounting now the resolutions and the minutes of that day's proceedings. There was a subsequent meeting with the Minister on the 7th of July, the day upon which the board decided to appoint Mr. Motswaneng. When the Minister joined us at the conclusion of the board meeting, which was around 11 p.m., the chairperson at the time, Mrs. Ellen Shabalala, did advise the Minister of the resolution of the board, and she also advised the Minister that there were members who were not comfortable and did not approve of that appointment.
At Magaliesberg, your first meeting with the Minister, there's evidence that is before the committee that the Minister urged board members to fill the vacancy of the COO. Is that correct?
That is correct. If I could just maybe read from the extract of the minutes of the 2nd of July. The Honourable Minister pointed out that if a person had been acting for such a long period without any problems and without any action being taken by the corporation, in law, a legitimate expectation had been created that the individual would be appointed in the position, and this left the board in an untenable situation.
Now, the minutes quote the minister to be referring to someone who's been acting for long in this position, having been created a legitimate expectation. To whom was the minister referring to?
It was the then acting CEO, Mr. Hlaudi Motswaneng.
Was he an acting CEO or acting COO?
Acting COO.
Okay. Then there is a meeting that is convened, a special board meeting convened on an urgent basis. Did you get an invite for that meeting?
The invite was circulated per SMS at 6:42 p.m. on the 6th of July by the company secretary, Mrs. Teresa Keldenhuys, which, if I could quote, says, "Dear all, an urgent board meeting is requested for 1900 hours on the 7th of July 2014 to be held in the 28th floor boardroom to discuss the Public Protector's report and the COO. It is expected that the Minister will be in attendance. Kindly confirm your availability. Agenda will be submitted under a separate cover. Regards, Teresa." At about 4 p.m. the following day, we received an agenda which stated that there were 2 items for discussion, namely the Public Protector's report, and it just said COO matter.
So, from the time that you received the email until you got the second communication. Understanding is you, in one day, got an email inviting you to a meeting. Was it an email or an SMS?
The day prior, at about 6:42 p.m. on the 6th, we received an SMS text message, and I still have that on my phone if members would like to have a look at that. And then on the following day, the day of the meeting, at about 4 p.m., we received an email with an agenda attached, as well as notice of the meeting. There were no supporting documents in relation to these two items for discussion. That was at about 4 p.m. And at 6 p.m., the meeting officially commenced.
The point I'm making is I don't know when and who conceived this idea of this meeting. It's still a mystery to this committee. But we know, Ms. Shabalala called the meeting. The circumstances surrounding her calling that special meeting is still a mystery. We hope she would clarify that to the committee. But there is almost 24-hour turnaround from the time that you get the SMS to the time you receive an email. And there are only two matters on the agenda. Why was it difficult to have proper documentation prepared for this meeting?
You know, Chair, it's very unfortunate. I wish the company secretary would be able to provide that information. I think that good governance dictates that when a meeting is called, there should be adequate supporting documentation to enable board members to prepare sufficiently and to make informed decisions. It's very unfortunate that we had a situation whereby both the company secretary as well as the board chairperson did not fulfill those governance responsibilities to the board.
The notice, when you receive the notice, could you comprehend what you were called to attend to at that meeting?
Not at all. Because the PP report was under discussion at that point in time, we assumed that there would just be a discussion of processes that were already underway. We were quite surprised when it said that the minister will be in attendance because the minister had met the board a week prior on the 2nd of July. So we thought that perhaps there could be something urgent, and given the respect that we have for the office of the minister, we made ourselves available at a very short period in time. But when it said COO matter, under no circumstances did we anticipate that we would be arriving to make an appointment on that day.
You get to this special board meeting. You, together with your colleagues, are non-executives.
That's correct.
You surely have other businesses to earn your living, is it correct?
Absolutely.
You get to a meeting, does anybody explain the urgency of this meeting?
Upon opening the meeting, the chairperson, Mrs. Ellen Shabalala, indicated that the urgency around this meeting was that she received a lawyer's letter from the attorneys of the acting COO, Mr. Motswaneng, which basically motivated that he was acting for a very long period in time, but also that what preceded this was that there was also a clearing of the issue of the previous COO, Mr. Mvuso Mbebe, whereby there was legal action that was instituted against the SABC by the former COO, and that had now been subsequently resolved by the Honourable Minister.
Now, I get there was correspondence. Why couldn't that correspondence have been dealt with at a scheduled subsequent board meeting?
We would also like to know that. You know, in my opinion, in hindsight, I don't think there was an urgency for that meeting, and there definitely was not an urgency for that appointment to be made that night.
Did you raise that
Yes,
concern with the board?
It was a very, fiercely contested meeting whereby we had two groups at the end of the day which tried to advance their motivations, their arguments, and their opinions in this regard, especially in light of having the Public Protector's report before us, which had not yet been adequately responded to. We felt that it was the inappropriate time. There's also board members who specifically wanted a legal opinion because they felt that this decision that was being advanced by the board was unlawful.
You say there was an invite extended to the minister, and the minister is on record confirming or acknowledging receipt thereof. Was the minister at the meeting or the venue of the meeting?
Yes, when the meeting commenced at around 7 p.m., shortly afterwards, the chairperson excused herself, saying that she needed to go welcome the minister. When she returned to the board, she indicated that the minister was sitting, I think, in her office. So our understanding was that the minister was present while the board was proceeding with its discussions. When the board had concluded the voting process and a decision was made, the Honourable Minister was invited into the boardroom, whereby this decision was announced and communicated to her. So she was present in the building at the time.
This decision, which is a recommendation to the minister, gets to be communicated. What is the minister's response to the board members?
The minister responded that she was there to hear the outcome of the decision and that she would apply her mind to this decision. The next day, we received a written letter from the minister which stated that she had received a letter from the board making a recommendation for the appointment, and she was confirming the appointment of Mr. Motswaneng as the COO.
Was the minister furnished with the minutes of that meeting? Would you know?
I wouldn't know. I actually did specifically ask the company's secretary the day after. I wanted to ensure that the letter to the minister specifically articulated my dissent. The company secretary responded to me on an email saying that she's not sure, she wasn't involved in the process of compiling the letter to the minister. The process was handled outside of the office of the company secretary.
Did you not find it odd that the circumstances surrounding, firstly, the convening of this meeting, its urgency, you're not happy with? The minister, in her busy schedule, attending to quite a number of entities within her portfolio, that she would come and babysit the board that evening. And once the board had finished its business, to come and speak to members of the board. I just want you to repeat what she said to board members about this particular issue.
If you'd allow me a minute, just to maybe quote from the minutes. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
The following is an extract from the minutes of the 7th of July, item number 2.4, feedback to the Honourable Minister. The chairperson pointed out that a period of acting had not been the only issue considered in arriving at the decision of confirming the acting CEO, but mainly on its merits, the new developments on the issue of Mr. Mvuso Mbebe as confirmed by the DOC and the Minister's requirement to adhere to the recommendations of the Public Protector's report. The Honourable Minister pointed out that, in her understanding, she had been invited to the meeting to be advised of the resolutions of the board with regard to the matters on the agenda. The Minister informed members that Mr. T. Bonakele had tendered his resignation, and then later on, the Minister requested the board to communicate in writing its resolution on the manner of the COO in order for her to apply her mind in this regard. She undertook to make the matter a priority as her 90 days deadline to implement the recommendation of the Public Protector had passed, and she would not want to appear as being defiant of the Public Protector. The resolution in this regard was that the board communicates in writing to the Minister of the Department of Communications its resolution to recommend confirming Mr. G.H. Motseneng as the Chief Operations Officer of the SABC.
I'm a bit confused. I'm confused because the Minister's initial stance was for the board to implement the Public Protector's report. Subsequent to that, the Minister had changed her stance in respect of the implementation of that report because she had sourced and obtained legal advice on what the Mkunu's report was saying. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, if the Minister says to a meeting that you are implementing the Public Protector's report, which part of that report were you implementing?
My understanding was there was a specific reference made to the recommendation by the Public Protector that a permanent COO should be appointed within 90 days. It seems like that was extracted above all the other recommendations as having a sense of urgency.
As an approval authority, the Minister in this regard, my understanding is that at that meeting, there was no compliance with HR recruitment policies. Is that correct?
That is correct.
We now know that even your company secretary, who wanted to raise that point at the meeting, was shut down. Don't tell us what the policies say. That was her testimony before this committee. She might not have said it at the meeting because she was shut down.
I would beg to differ. I think that at the meeting, despite it being, a very heated debate and discussion, as is in normally any meeting, that a board member or an official who would like to speak has an opportunity to raise their hand or to gesture as such to the chairperson of the meeting, and then members would be allowed to make input. So I find it, concerning. If I look at the minutes as well, we all had a chance to voice our opinion. So based on my recollection of the day in the minutes, I don't think that that was the case.
But she didn't even have to tell you as the board, because you were the board members, you would have approved those policies, is that correct?
Absolutely.
So you knew that those policies were not being complied with?
Yes, the board in its entirety would have known, because prior to that we were furnished with the policies. The MOI, which was in effect at that point in time, also stipulated what the process would have been to appoint your executive directors. There's also reference, to that comment, which was highlighted to the board as its collective by various members who were opposed to the decision, that there would be a normal process. The HR committee chairperson at the time, Prof. Khumalo, did specifically advance that argument. He was supported by a number of us, but it was unfortunately not accepted by the majority of board members.
Now, the minister seems to have had a particular interest on this particular process. Would you say that she would have known that no processes as outlined in your recruitment policies were complied with?
I would think so, given that the Public Protector report was still in front of all of us at that point in time, as well as when she joined the meeting, there was a summary provided to the Minister of the process that was followed by the board earlier on. So I would definitely say that the minister would be aware that there was no compliance to those processes followed. I also specifically requested the company secretary to ensure that it's documented in the letter that was sent to the minister, which unfortunately did not happen. But the minister, when the resolution was read to her, it was brought to attention that there were a number of board members who did not accept and support this decision.
Mr. Madoda Shushu testified before this committee around irregularities around the procurement processes at the SABC. And the minister was before the committee yesterday and indicated that Mr. Shushu should have reported this matter to the police, as it was a crime, and that by his failure to report such, he became an accomplice to the commission of a crime. This is what I want to ask you. Consider this statement coming from the minister in light of the high rate of criminal activity within society in general, but within government departments or state institutions in general. Considering that Mr. Shushu, on learning about these irregularities, reported this matter to the Auditor General, reported this matter to Treasury, would the minister's statement be a responsible statement under those circumstances?
In my personal and professional opinion, I would not agree. I think that, the Auditor General, especially if this matter is brought to them, they would ensure that it is followed through in terms of their auditing processes. But if one looks at the processes that the AG follows, they on a regular basis also would meet with the executive authorities of the relevant department as well as the entities under which those falls. So the AG does have an opportunity at the highest level to engage with the Honourable Minister and to be able to bring such matters to her attention. I think this is a normal process that the AG follows, whereby they meet in committee, but they also then have a chance to meet with the Minister and the department as the shareholder.
What you term your unlawful removal, unfortunately, we're not going to deal with that. But there was a recommendation from the board to the minister to remove you from the office. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, the minister claims to have acted in terms of the company's law. Whether that was right or wrong, it's neither here nor there for purpose of this exercise. But don't you find it odd that the same minister was still within this portfolio? There has been quite a number of resignations at this particular board, that she does not find the authority in the Companies Act to appoint other directors to fill the vacancy.
Absolutely. I think, the manner in which one is appointed, there's a similar manner followed in terms of the removal and resignations. If there was a justification in the Companies Act to remove, there should have been a justification in the Companies Act to appoint. The fact that we are sitting now with only one non-executive board member and those vacancies have not been filled bears testament to the fact that it's only through the process of the Broadcasting Act that members can be appointed and removed.
The minister was here yesterday indicating that none of you, members of the board, raised what your colleagues have told before this committee as a divided board, the bullying of the board by Mr. Mutsoning. Have you ever in any meeting raised with the minister any concerns you had around the board issues or the governance of the board?
The Honourable Minister did at a point in time call for one-on-one meetings with all of the non-executive board members. Unfortunately, my meeting was cancelled at very short notice. When it was subsequently scheduled, I received an SMS from our office at about 9:15 requesting me to present myself at about 2 o'clock. Being a non-executive member and having various business interests, I was unable to, to be there at such short notice, and accordingly, I did not have my one-on-one with the minister. But I would think that given, the extensive media coverage subsequent to the CEO appointment process, there was an indication in the media that there was a division in the board. There was also an indication of the board voting. So one would think that even though I did not have an opportunity personally to raise that with the minister, that there was sufficient public information available, that there was a breakdown in the board in terms of this decision. But further to that, my colleagues had an opportunity to meet with the minister, and I was told that this was raised through their various engagements with the minister.
You might not be aware, but the minister was here yesterday, and she testified that the process of removing board members of this board is cumbersome, and that there has to be something done about that. It does not end there. The minister has introduced a bill in the Assembly, the Broadcasting Amendment Bill, and one of the purposes of the bill is to take away the role and the powers of the Assembly of Parliament to play a role in the recruitment and the appointment of board members. Given your personal experience, if Parliament were to approve that recommendation, what would it practically mean for board members at the SABC?
In my personal opinion, I think that could result in a huge amount of manipulation, whereby, if going forward, if a shareholder does not agree with the perspective of board members, then they can be very easily removed to be out of the way. I would hope that that bill does not result in legislation being passed. I think given that the SABC is a public broadcaster, by design of the current Broadcasting Act, I think the processes are deliberately cumbersome because it ensures protection of the public as well. So if that is removed, one then wonders if it is in the best interest of being a public broadcaster.
The last question from myself, ma'am, relates, if you can just introduce it. I'm sure members of this committee are itching to hear you talk about the multi-choice contract.
Thank you, Advocate. The multi-choice contract, as has been indicated earlier, was appointed at the time of the interim board. But upon our appointment, we were aware of that due to the extensive media coverage on that matter. At a board meeting held on the 15th of October, which was shortly after our appointment, we were presented with numerous documents for the board's information, which included, amongst others, the commercial and master channel distribution agreement between the SABC and MultiChoice, as well as the board minutes of the 12th of June, whereby this proposal was conditionally approved by the then interim board. At a subsequent board meeting of the 29th of October 2013, my fellow board member Krish Naidu raised his concerns regarding the legal aspects of the contract between the SABC and MultiChoice. He referred the board members to Section 8, read with Section 2 of the Broadcasting Act 4 of 1999, which related to the powers, objectives, and parameters within which the SABC could operate. Based on these sections, Mr. Naidu was of the opinion that the MultiChoice contract was ultra vires the Broadcasting Act and invalid. He detailed various concerns which amongst others was that it was anti-competitive and in contravention of Section 2 of the Broadcasting Act.
No further questions, Chair.
Thanks, Advocate. Ma'am, just so that we have some sort of context. When you served on the board, did you chair any board subcommittee? And if you did, which one did you chair?
No, I did not have the privilege of chairing any of the subcommittees. I was just a member.
Of which subcommittee were you a member?
I was a member of the Audit Committee, of the Human Resources and Remuneration Committee, as well as the Acquisitions and Disposals Committee.
Could you briefly indicate to us the process? So I would assume it comes from the technical staff or the officials, whatever it might be, gets to the board subcommittee, gets to the board as a board decision. Is that the process that is normally followed?
Yes, under normal circumstances, matters that are in the jurisdiction of each of the committees would first serve at the board subcommittee. The board subcommittee would then make a recommendation to the board of such documentation or information.
In your time as a member of the audit committee, that cluster you spoke about, can you recall any issue or topic that subsequently went to the board that was of such a sensitive nature that the SABC has refused to give those documents to Parliament? Any matter that you think in your time in the audit subcommittee or HR subcommittee that was of such a serious nature that Parliament could be told that we can't give it to you because it will never negatively impact our commercial standing. Can you think of anyone? And if you can, just give us an indication of what kind of matters are of such importance that members of Parliament should not have sight of them?
Absolutely not, Chair. I think it's very important to note that the SABC is audited under the Public Finance Management Act, and as such, the information would be in public interest. The SABC also accounts to Parliament through the Portfolio Committee. So information that would be shared with the Audit Committee, in my opinion, is also suitable for tabling at the at Parliament, as well as the various structures of Parliament.
Killian, your 5 minutes starts now.
Chair, can we not have 10 minutes on this session, please? 5 minutes, okay. Chair, okay, can we negotiate for 7?
Honourable, you're wanting me to change midstream. I thought we had agreed that it was 5 minutes. But if you want 10 minutes, if you want the whole day, it's really up to you. There's a request for 10 minutes.
We've all board members that appeared at 5, we actually had 5 minutes. I think let's stick to the 5. Let's use our way of inquiring as you had advised, and then we can do it. So no prefaces.
Any other views in terms of time? 5? 5, approved. You've got 5 minutes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Chairperson, first of all, just welcome to Ms. Kaladas, but I would like to ask her primarily on 2 issues. The one is the minutes where the appointment of the acting COO happened. What is of a concern to me is we were issued with purported minutes of the meeting of the 7th July, but the extract that you have provided here on page 6 does not appear in our submission from the company secretary. Our document looks different, and I think we need to just compare notes. It would therefore be very important if you could help us with other minutes so that we can compare documents submitted via the Office of the Company Secretary. Then the issue of the appointment. If I look at the chronological order of events, It builds up from the first meeting, which you say you did not attend, that's Magali's, and that was the strategic session of the HR committee. Then the urgent meeting called on the 6th. From there was a meeting, and that meeting resolved that it was a very important matter, according to your minutes that you have given us an extract, that there should be an action within 2 weeks on the public protectors. The board should have a special meeting. Can you confirm that no such special meeting was called?
Thank you, Honourable Killen. In terms of the first issue, the minutes, I just want to state that the minutes that I have provided as supporting documentation to my witness are copies made out of the bundles that were provided to board members. Those bundles are still intact, as were served to board members. So I'm happy to make all of those available to yourselves. Secondly, in terms of the appointment of the CEO and sequence of events, the 2 weeks time frame was obviously not adhered to given the sequence of events. There were special meetings called at various points in time, and I can give you the dates and times of those minutes, but definitely not a specific meeting within 2 weeks to conclude on the PP process.
Would you say that, given the meeting of the 2nd of July and the 7th of July, that there was a possibility that the minister exerted undue pressure on the board to make the appointment? Can you tell us, Mr. Motswaneng's lawyers who presented the letter at the meeting of the 7th of July, which company represented him?
Thank you, Honourable Member. I say this with all respect and humility to the office of the Honourable Minister. In my personal opinion, I would think that the board was misguided in terms of the comments that were made, as is documented in the minutes of the 2nd of July. I also would think that there was, as you would indicate, undue pressure placed upon the board. At that board meeting of the 7th of July, we were specifically told by the chairperson that the meeting will not conclude until the board reaches a decision, as the minister was waiting for a decision. And that is why we were sitting there at 11 p.m. at night, and we eventually ended up with a voting process. So we were basically not allowed to leave until a decision was made, which I would gather as being undue influence and pressure being placed upon us.
Okay, can I just proceed to the next item, and that is the Memorandum of Incorporation. Did the board ever discuss the Memorandum of Incorporation? And was it adopted at any board meeting? We have a copy of a document, and it is very interesting. The meeting of the 27th of November, there was an email that you are referring to. You then followed up to inquire why you as a board were not informed about the senior appointments. You were then told by the company secretary that the Memorandum of Incorporation was changed and it was signed. Did the board ever discuss those changes? And is it significant that we have a copy signed by the minister on the 30th of October, and then we have another one that was signed, or there's a stamp of Professor Maguve also, in addition to the minister's signature. But can you tell us, did the board ever engage on the Memorandum of Incorporation?
No, during my period in office, we were not served with this revised MOI. The first time that I found out about it, as well as other members, was in passing when we were notified of executive appointments being made. We were just notified that the minister had revised the MOI and that there was a section which now removed powers that the board previously had to the group executives. Up until today, I've requested that MOI from the company secretary, and I have not received it. So in terms of the signatures, I have not been able to verify that.
Thank you very much. To our fellow South Africans guests in the gallery, you're welcome. You're witnessing an ad hoc committee in progress. And we are hoping that you will learn something from it. We're certainly grateful that you are showing some sort of interest in the workings of Parliament. So please be welcome. Honourable Chauke, your 5 minutes starts now, sir.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning, ma'am. When the Mkono attorneys were introduced as the advisor to the chair, what was the response of the board? Because I'll take it that that appointment will have obviously come through a resolution of the board, either in the form of a capacity to the chair of the board to have legal support. What was the response of the board when that happened?
Honorable Choke, I think we must, bear in mind as well that there were points in time where our chairperson unfortunately behaved as an executive chairperson. The board did not take a resolution to appoint Mkunu attorneys. We were just notified that they had been appointed and that they would be providing a legal opinion and advisory services in this regard. There's no board resolution to that effect, and as board members, we were surprised.
The second point of yours is the issue of the remedial action of the public protector. Before they were referred to subcommittees, was there a discussion in the board just zooming into what were the remedial actions before they were referred to the subcommittees?
No, during the first meeting whereby the Public Protector's report was tabled, the discussion was merely around the process. And it is for that specific reason that I dissented, because I felt that the recommendations were of such a substantial nature that they would have warranted a discussion at the board. And the board merely received the report and agreed on the process whereby it would be allocated to these various subcommittees.
In the meeting that dealt with the Public Protector's report, the company secretary in her presentation in this committee here, she told the committee that she has in fact advised the board accordingly on the process that must be followed with regard to these issues, especially the second one being the issue of the appointment of the COO. Was there such recorded in any of the minutes that the company secretary made that advice?
No, Chair, not at all.
As member of the subcommittee dealing with the audit issues, at some point did you have a discussion with the AG, especially the what we call the high-level discussion before the report is presented of the AG? If so, did you deal with issues of fruitless and wasteful expenditure in that engagement? And what was the position that the subcommittee took to process issues of fruitless and wasteful expenditure to an extent that we then report to the board, because the subcommittee will then recommend to the board of the process that must be followed?
Our main concern at that point in time as the audit committee was to ensure that there was accountability and that people were held responsible in relation to fruitless and wasteful as well as irregular expenditure. The process that we prescribed to management was that the audit committee should be provided with a detailed analysis of this as well as accountability allocated for each of these transactions.
Now it's clear that the board was already now divided. How many members?
Going to break. We apologize for the breakdown in communication or breakdown in the sound quality. And we have that's as incoming from Parliament. Let's take a short little break. We'll see if we can fix that little technical hitch, and hopefully when we come back, we'll go straight back to Parliament. See you shortly.
The moment she turned the party into the party. Just look at them. They will talk about this for at least the rest of the evening. And, well, possibly once or twice tomorrow morning. So, to the master of the trick shot, you are indeed a party comrade. And we salute you with a bottle of Ballantyne's finest blended Scotch whiskey for just $144.99 from Tops at Spa.
The it was bound to be an interesting debate with Donald and Hillary, him not even having bothered to prepare. So he was flying on instinct. And it didn't come across quite well. I'm starting a hashtag medical.
Well, you're back with us here on the Newsroom show. We've just come out of Parliament. If you were here a little bit earlier, there is a slight, we've managed to fix the problem. There's a slight hiss on the line. Hope you don't mind that. Honourable Van Dam is on the mic. Let's go straight back there.
Unduly interfered in the SABC and failed to discharge of her duties of oversight.
Thank you, Honourable Van Dam. I think, again, with the greatest humility and respect, I must concede that, unfortunately, the board was misguided and there was undue influence placed in relation to those governance failures mentioned above.
So the minister did interfere and she failed to discharge of her duties?
Yes.
You're quite clear about that. And then the other question I have, yesterday the minister was asked about the late Hope Zinde's allegation that she said Ubaba loves Hlaudi and we must protect him. Did you ever have a conversation with Ms. Zinde about that? Did she ever relay that message to you? And did you ever get the sense that Mr. Motsoeneng was receiving political protection?
No, unfortunately, she did not have that conversation with me. The first time I had sight of that was through the media when this communication was published between the minister and Hope Zinde.
Did you get the sense that Mr. Motsoeneng had political protection?
I had the sense that he had protection. I couldn't identify exactly where that protection came from, but within the board, he definitely had the support and protection of the chairperson and a faction of the board members.
That faction, the faction that existed, which I think other former board members have described to us, do you think and I know the role that the chair played in creating that faction, do you think the minister had any role in widening those divisions between board members and creating that faction?
I think by virtue of supporting recommendations of a certain faction, it did give that faction more authority to continue behaving in a certain manner.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Kaladas.
Honourable Olivier. Thanks, Ma'am Van Dam.
Thanks, Chair. Ms. Kaladas, when Ms. Mukhobo was in front of us, she indicated that the board was highly divided with infighting. Can you share more on what she shared with us?
Thank you, Honourable Oliwe. I think in terms of this infighting and these factions, it was on the basis of different values and principles. You had the one group which would want governance to be followed, which would take very cautious decisions, ensuring that there is process and procedure followed, as well as wanting to understand the consequences of decisions made. Then there was another faction which, wanted things done in a very abrupt manner, in a manner that did not take into account these policies. So I think the factions was on the basis of different interpretations of our fiduciary responsibilities.
On page 7, you have contradicting statements and actions, not necessarily from you. If we look at your statement, look at B there, I think it's 3B, where powers to appoint and to discipline staff and members are delegated to CEO, CEO, and COO. You go down to 5 on your unlawful removal. The minister is now writing to you because my understanding is that if they are given powers to appoint, they should be having powers to also dismiss. What was happening there, and as you are responding to me, couple that with when I asked the minister about your departure or removal from the board, she said there were allegations of fraud against you. Can you clarify us?
Thank you. I think the first quotation that's mentioned is in relation to the appointment and removal of the 3 executive directors. And then under section 5, the extract is in relation to the non-executive directors. In terms of the allegations that were made against me, I would like to honestly say before this ad hoc committee that to be able to motivate for our unlawful removal, there were fabrications that were made, and as my board member Krishnadu said, frivolous allegations. At a board meeting, the chairperson at the time, Prof. Maguve, indicated that the meeting would end at 1 o'clock. I therefore made arrangements to leave the meeting at 1:30, allowing for a bit of delays. And that was then taken that I left the meeting early. We are non-executive directors. We are only prepared to be there for the time that is given and allocated to us. So I think this was completely unfounded, and it was just a manner and a means used to justify an unlawful removal.
There's also an indication that most of the time board meetings failed to correct. But despite that, there were proposals that were taken which were endorsed in later meetings. What became of the decisions that were taken in meetings that failed to correct?
Thank you. I think the reason for the failure of meetings to correct was the haphazard manner in which they were called for at very short notice. Given that board members are non-executive, they would sometimes not be available at such abrupt short notice, and that eventually resulted in the lack of the quorum. When there was a failure to correct, those board meetings do not actually have a legal standing. But unfortunately, the way the situation at the SABC took place was that they would proceed. Even though a board meeting did not correct, or a subcommittee, they would proceed to meet, they would proceed to take a resolution. For example, in terms of our unlawful removal, it was a resolution taken by 2 members of a governance and risk committee, which was an incorrect subcommittee meeting. They then would make a recommendation to the board or to later committees that it must be that it should be ratified, and that's completely poor governance practice.
Who sought the legal opinion from Parliament which confirmed the unlawfulness of your removal, as you are indicating on page 9? Because there you are expressing your disappointment at the portfolio committee. Also, what were you expecting the committee to do? Just tie that up.
Thank you. My understanding was that that legal opinion that was sought was initiated by the then Portfolio Committee of Communications. Because there was public comments made, and because the portfolio committees are open to public, I was able to pick that up, and I requested a copy of that legal opinion from the company secretariat that I was provided with. My understanding was that because we are appointed through a public process that is vested with the Portfolio Committee of Communications, when our unlawful removal was initiated, my first point of call was to bring that to the attention of the then chairperson of the PCC. And one would expect that then the Portfolio Committee of Communications would have taken that matter to heart and ensured that due processes are followed. Given that there was a legal opinion from Parliament which advised that it was unlawful, we were quite disappointed that it actually fell off the radar of the PCC, and they basically ignored that legal opinion.
Thank you very much. Honourable Koza.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I think I need to make this comment. I have a strong feeling that the minister misled us yesterday. I also feel that she probably misrepresented a lot of facts before us. And I think as this committee, we will have to take action when the time comes. Anyway, I thought I would put that in context. Ma'am, let's go to the meeting of the 2nd of July. The meeting of the 2nd of July and the 7th of July. Can you see those meetings?
Yes.
In your view, those meetings, the first meeting, that's where the minister is dealing with two specific issues. The first meeting, she's dealing with the public protector, the report, and she's dealing with the COO. And we see the minister again, and she pronounces herself to the point where she is covertly setting aside the public protector remedial auction. Then on the 7th, the minister also covertly stands outside the meeting, but obviously she has a predetermined outcome of what should transpire between those two items, which are related. Remember the findings of the public protector, and then you have the COO. You have the issue of the COO, the confirmation of the COO. That COO who is implicated in that report. Now, would you confirm with me that the minister exerted influence or alternatively steered the board to take a particular decision consistent with her predetermined outcomes?
Thank you, Honourable Khoza. I think the extracts of the minutes and the resolution speaks for itself in terms of what the minister had pronounced on that day, in terms of her expectation to have the appointment made.
Okay, there is something else I also need to confirm, ma'am. There appears to be, first of all, before I go there, would you kindly forward that bundle of minutes that you have? Because to me, it appears as though the minister, Mr. Matseneng, the company secretary, and Ms. Ellen Chabalala appear to be colluding. And somehow it appears like that because the kinds of records that we are bringing forward to us and those that we were given that emanate from the company secretary, they're not the same. And I think we have to take action on that. Are you going to provide those minutes to us?
Absolutely.
Please, we need that. And again, do you think there is a relationship amongst these four in particular?
In terms of the manner in which they conducted themselves, at board meetings, they were definitely of the same mind.
Okay. The other thing is that the minister told us that the multi-choice contract predates herself, so she wouldn't have known much about it or whatever that she implied. Now, it appears as though you came in 2013 and the minister came around the same time. Now, it appears as though there was that document that was prepared by Krish Naidu. Do you think the minister didn't know anything about some of the legal challenges that were being raised by board members in respect of the multi-choice contract? Because to us, she pleaded as if she didn't know that it was just a matter that was belonging to the board or whatever, and it predates her.
I think that the multi-choice agreement also predates us as the board, but it was in the public arena. There was extensive coverage of the concerns. So I think anybody who has the interest of the SABC at heart would want to do some research and obtain that information to have a better understanding of the consequences for the organization. She may not specifically know of the extracts of board minutes, but my understanding was that board member Krish Naidu did have a one-on-one session with her, which I hope he would have raised that specific issue.
Okay, finally, I just wanted to know, the acting group CEO once worked for Kabiso.
Very briefly, ma'am, your time is up.
And subsequently, we heard from Mr. Shushu. I thought maybe you can comment whether you know anything. Mr. Shushu here presented something to the effect that there was an irregular contract awarded to Sekela Kabiso. Now, I wanted to know if you know anything about it. If you don't, it's fine. We will follow other routes to investigate it.
No, I'm not aware of that.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Honorable Swart.
Thank you, Chairperson. Ms. Kaladas, would you sit forward a little bit because I'm struggling to hear you. And I just want to say from the outset that I share my colleagues' concerns about some of the things the Minister indicated to us yesterday, and it's definitely something that, had we had your testimony, we could have put to her, because there seems to be some conflicts. And I think that particularly with the appointment of the COO, I think she played a much greater role in that meeting of the 7th of July than she indicated to us. But I want to sketch a pattern, and that is that the first time you met with the Minister of the 2nd and the 7th of July, by the end of that year, most of the board had, those that were in one camp seemed to have been pressurized either to resign or there was frivolous charges against them. And I must say, I'm incredibly impressed by your ability, by your skills, by your qualifications. You are a chartered accountant. To have charges against you of fraud is totally unacceptable. What did you further do about that? And would you agree with me that it seems to be an agenda to get rid of those board members that voted against the permanent appointment of the CEO and was seen to be part of a certain faction?
Thank you, Honourable Swart. I think I must also mention that at the board meeting of the 2nd of July, the Minister did announce, that she felt that the board was too big, that she would have liked to have a smaller board. So later on, after the CEO appointment process, board members who did not support the COO all received letters, requesting us to resign, as has been announced. And that process started in September. So I think if one looks at the time frames, very soon after that situation, there was already wheels in motion to want to see us out.
So within 6 months of that, you were all basically out, and and it seems that we've had incredibly skilled persons come in as witnesses from the board level, from senior executives, and if you were not toeing the line, there was a way was found to get rid of you. And this is why it's so important for us to get to the root of these issues. We had the changing of the memorandum to facilitate that. And it all seems to be around the certain grouping that you indicated earlier that seemed to be working with a specific agenda to pursue certain issues as per a faction. And you'd agree with that?
Yes.
Just can you tell me, where you also indicated that there's a process that you are continuing with, the application by the SOS Support Public. What is that process?
Following our unlawful removal, I think there's been an outcry by the civic organizations. There was an application brought about by the SOS Support Public Broadcasting Coalition, the Freedom of Expression Institute, and the trustees for the time being of the Media Monitoring Project Benefit Trust, case number 76343/15, whereby they are challenging our unlawful removal. So I'm in support.
So where's that process now? Is it before court, or where is that now?
Yes, it's before court. I'm not sure if a date has been set for that, but it is in motion.
Okay, and so we also saw the procurement processes. We saw a lot of irregularities that has been trying to explain away. To a certain degree, the minister said, well, it's not my responsibility. We had the chairman of the board saying he wasn't aware of a lot of the issues, which is totally unacceptable. It seems to be a total breach and collapse of governance. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
And would you agree that there's a substantial intervention from the parliamentary process is required, and that we, in fact, to a certain degree, the Communications Portfolio Committee failed in its responsibility as well?
Yes, I mean, our disappointment in terms of our unlawful removal, I think that if the PCC had pronounced at that point in time, we would have prevented certain of these issues that we are sitting with now. I think because they were allowed to get away with it, there was then a renewed sense of confidence that they could continue to bulldoze these matters through.
Last question, and that is there any doubt in your mind that Parliament appoints board members, and it is Parliament working with the President that should remove board members?
Absolutely not. I think the matter of having only one board member it's testament to that it's only Parliament that can appoint.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, sir. Honourable Matlanga.
Chair, thank you. Madam, just one quick question that before I get into the rest. Amongst the entities that you have been serving, you mentioned a lot of public entities. Have you ever served on private companies, especially ones that are listed at the stock exchange?
No, my interest has been predominantly public sector.
Okay. Now, your board members, I mean your CEOs, from what we pick up from the records, on average, your CEO would serve for only 6 months, am I correct?
That could be correct.
Because if you once served in the listed company, that would be, I mean, like red flashes,
yes.
Red lights for a company that treats its officials in that way. The next question I would like to raise, Chairperson, is that yesterday when the minister gave us evidence, she actually said that against her advice, the board appointed Mr. Motsweni. In other words, she had advised you not to consider Mr. Motsweni, and you, as the board, you actually said no. You wanted that person.
I'm very surprised to hear that. I'm hearing that for the first time. Given the extracts of the board meeting of 2nd and 7th of July, that is definitely not what you see written here. And I think the fact that the board met on the...
Just come closer to your mic.
Sorry, the fact that the board met on the 7th of July, and then on the 8th of July, you received a letter from the minister very early the next morning confirming the appointment. I'm not sure where that advice would have taken place.
So as HR board member, you never processed advertisement or a recruitment process that emanated from administration coming to you?
Not at all. This did not pass through the normal recruitment processes.
And the rest of the other executives, they also just come in like that for appointment?
The CFO, which is also a group executive, went through the process of advertisement. So there was definitely inconsistency there.
And the CEO?
The CEOs, at the time, there was a process that was initiated to make a permanent appointment via the processes that were established.
So this could only be the only one that just came straight to the board?
Yes, where processes were circumvented.
And then competency tests. Is it something that is done at SABC or not?
Under normal processes through your HR, that would be done, but this was not done in these particular incidents.
Now, the multi-choice deal, well, I actually call it SAIL, and I know that I've been queried for using the name SAIL. I'll revert to the one deal, although what I actually mean is that from my understanding, multi-choice was actually, the archive was actually removed from the public access only for benefit to private through this deal. What is your view? What is your view about this whole deal? What does it achieve or not achieve?
I think in my own personal opinion and based on the opinion, the legal advice provided by our board member, Krish Naidu, definitely there is undue benefit towards multi-choice of what would normally vest within the public arena. I would think that, as has been alluded to, the sale of the archives, I think that's what it tantamountably advises to.
Yeah, okay. So at least we are agreeing on that
yes.
one. And the amount of 23 million or to 33 million, I don't know which of the two is correct, to be paid to, or actually already half of it or some of it having been paid to Motsweni as a fee for facilitating the deal. Was that approved by the board?
No, not during my time. I only read about it now through the media. So I think it was this past recent months when it was done.
Okay. And as I conclude, Chair, I think I'd like to join my colleagues who holds a view that the minutes that we have been tampered with. And therefore, for those who under oath have confirmed that these minutes are indeed as they were, it's a matter that I think we will have to look at very seriously.
No, Chair, but there's an uncertainty. You see, the minister indicated, with fairness to the minister, that she did not support the appointment of the CEO recently It's not back into July. It was in October 2016. Yes. It's on page 16 of her notes, Chair, just as a matter of clarity.
No, I wanted to raise that in fairness, that it's not we must not create the impression that the minister was in total support all along. At some point when there was a court ruling, she went to them and said to them, implement the court ruling. So that is clarified, that she might have supported at a certain point or leaned towards support in the sense of the long serving, but after a ruling, I think, of the Supreme Court, she then said, implement the Supreme Court ruling. So you don't have to respond to that one. I just thought I'd raise it so that even when we deliberate, we can further sharpen it. All right, Honorable Mukwena, you've got 5 minutes.
Thanks, Chair. I would also add maybe that we should perhaps try and get the same minutes from other board members so that we can establish consistency. Are you well, Ma?
Very well.
I'm just trying to check. In the meeting in which Hlaudi Motsoeneng was appointed as permanent COO, was he present in the meeting?
He was there at the beginning of the meeting, and then at a certain point in time, he was asked to leave, so he recused himself when the discussion of his appointment took place.
How many people then were in the meeting, would have voted in the meeting?
At the point of voting, there were 11 non-executive board members present. The executive directors were also asked to recuse themselves, and they later joined the meeting. But they did vote subsequently.
So the people who voted were how many in total?
I would say 13.
13, okay. Yeah. I'm also surprised. You say that the minister in that meeting said that she needed to appoint permanently a COO as per the recommendation of the Public Protector's report. I'm interested in that because yesterday she seemed to say that there was ambiguity as to the binding nature of the report. But you seem to be saying to us that in that meeting she was confirming the binding nature of the report.
I think I can provide the minutes to you. The minutes, speaks for itself, whereby at the 2nd of July, she pronounced on the fact that the board needed to implement the Public Protector's report and the recommendations. And then on the 7th of July, the comments that were made were in relation to the Mkhunu report.
Okay. No, because she came yesterday, she specifically said to us that there was ambiguity as she wasn't sure as to whether, the report was binding or not. And then, were you aware of any other board members who communicated to the minister, either in private meetings or that communicated to you that they have communicated to the minister as to the chaos that Hlaudi Motsoeneng was causing at the SABC?
Yes, when we all had our one-on-one meetings scheduled with the minister, I think later on, the board members who did attend, namely board member Bongani Khumalo, did share with us that he did have the opportunity to advise the Minister of Concerns. Later on, Hope Zinde as well made some comments.
So, in your view, the minister was aware of the chaos, and that chaos had been communicated to her specifically by board members?
Yes.
When, at the meeting at which Hlaudi was appointed, according to the minutes, it was communicated to the minister as to the illegality of the appointment. Was it at the meeting itself?
At the meeting itself, when the minister joined us, the chair summarized the proceedings, and she summarized that there were a number of board members who did not support the motion of the appointment. But the chair did not go into the details of why we did not support it, and it was 11 p.m., so people were in a hurry to leave, and the minister advised that she would then act upon a written notification that is received from the board. But that was not done by the board, it was done by the chair, it seems like in isolation.
But she would have received the minutes as part of her investigation and ratification.
She should have received it if due process was followed.
Yeah, and the minutes would have said that these are the reasons why.
But there was also the public protector's report, which
Yeah.
had concerns, that was a public document.
Yeah. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much. Oh, I almost forgot you. Nkwanka, I beg your pardon. Your 5 minutes starts now.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. You almost forgot about me, right? And Chair, I think as the United Democratic Movement, we also wish to say that you need to do everything in your power to deal with people who came here and misled Parliament. Asizukwazi abantu bazapha bafike basixokisele and then we keep quiet and do nothing about it as Parliament. I'm using ukuxokisela as a strong word in Xhosa to express our disgust and disappointment in some of the people who misled us here. Ma'am, I think because we are concluding this process, it's important for us to connect the dots for the people of South Africa about what happened.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to try to sketch the sequence or the chain of events. From where I am sitting, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, it seems that the overall strategy was, firstly, it was to get rid of the public protector's report by using a report or recommendation from Mr. Motsoeneng's lawyers, because that report served as a stumbling block to what they wanted to do, to put Mr. Motsoeneng as a COO, right? And in the process of them doing that, now I'll ask you the question when I'm done. In the process of them doing that, they had to purge all the dissenting voices in the board, right? Which was a different faction according to them. Then later on, amend the memorandum of incorporation to give powers to the executive so that they can in turn return the favor, purge dissenting voices among the executive members of the SABC who wanted to adhere to principles of corporate governance. And then at a later stage, also decide then to amend DEF so that they could be able to do whatever they wanted with procurement, right? So it was a strategy in essence to loot the resources of SABC. It was, in essence, if you look at it. Because how do you explain immediately after all those amendments have been made, irregular expenditure shot up to about 673 million rands, which is almost $1 billion rands. And when you look at the comments of the Auditor General, they would say there are no supporting contracts, no procurement processes followed. So it's a clear strategy overall to loot the state resources, SABC as an institution. Would you agree with that?
I would agree, Honourable Member. I think I must just correct you that the Mkhunu report was not Mr. Motsoeneng's lawyers. It was lawyers brought to the organization or brought to the board by the appointment of the then chairperson, Mrs. Shabalala.
Fair enough. But remember, you may not be aware of this, but I think the public protector, in fact, I have it in front of me, that on the 14th of July, in that very same year, 2014, wrote to the minister expressing a concern about the fact that they followed the recommendations of a lawyer, right? Yes. And undermined the Chapter 9 institution and its report, citing that they should have followed that, right? So in light, given all these failures at SABC, I'm talking about corporate governance failures, and the contribution of the shareholder representative, would you not say that it is hard to think of someone who is less versed on the workings of the board and issues of corporate governance at SABC than the minister herself?
No, I think that, if one is a shareholder of the organization and there's various engagements, all of this information would have been brought to light.
No, I'm saying, if you look at her contribution in the mayhem itself, would you not say that she's also to blame for those failures?
Yes, I think my colleague Krish Naidu, as quoted, says she came too close to the action.
Yes, because she had vested interest in the action, correct? Now, I was listening to Professor Khumalo, who said when he spoke about the behavioral tendencies of Mr. Motsoeneng, he said, for instance, that he was very combative before with the previous minister during board meetings, but he became more emboldened and less combative in the current term. Would that be an indication that he was deriving political power, was comfortable with the political power and support that he was getting, maybe from the shareholder representative and
Yes.
other people in government?
Yeah, I think definitely I can agree that, there was a change in behavior amongst him as well as amongst board members from the time of the former minister Karim to the current minister.
Thank you, Chair.
I didn't understand that, sorry.
No,
that was not for you. That was not for you. It was for
Ma'am Kaladas.
No, let me clarify that, Chair. It was not intended for you, ma'am. It was my way of saying, as a politician, I think we've cut them out. Not.
Ma'am Kaladas, thank you very much for availing yourself. As we've indicated to all members or witnesses that appeared before this committee, our task ends at the 28th of February 2017. So if there is something that you'd like to bring to our attention between now and the 28th, you're more than welcome to do it through the committee secretary, and in the normal method in which we do work, we will raise it with the committee and it will become public. So if there is anything, share it with us. But what we do want specifically are those bundle of minutes that you've been referring to. If you don't mind, if you could leave them with us before you leave today. Thank you very much. And ma'am, we'll get to you now. If you don't hear from us or see us between now and Christmas and between now and the 1st of January, we wish you happy holidays and we wish you a prosperous new year.
Thank you.
All right. You are free to go, ma'am. Honourable members, we've got one more agenda item as we all agreed earlier on. As soon as, I don't know if you want a 2-minute break and then we'll just have a meeting in terms of the way forward and take it from there. 2-minute break or you, 2 minutes?
Well, that was SABC's former non-executive board member Rachel Kaladas, who told Parliament that she only became aware of the contents of the Public Protector's reporting to the SABC for the first time on the website of the Public Protector. Now, she was a board member on the 25th of September 2013 and was removed as a board member in March 2015. Now, this is what's happening currently in Parliament. They're taking a 2-minute break, apparently. They'll be back and we will go there live. But let's now take a quick look at your weather forecast.
A meteorite hit the Earth 2 million years ago, creating an enormous impact of crater, about 10 kilometers in diameter, near Vredefort in the Free State, 100 kilometers southwest of Johannesburg, now known as the Vredefort Dome, a South African World Heritage Site. The meteorite is said to have been larger than Table Mountain and caused a 1,000 megaton blast of energy. The impact would have heated about 70 cubic kilometers of rock and have increased the Earth's oxygen levels to a degree that made the development of multicellular life possible. The world has about 130 crater structures of possible impact origin. The Vredefort Dome is the largest in the world, followed by Sudbury Crater in Canada and the Chicxulub Crater in Mexico.
Information-hungry viewers stay with SABC News, as issues on the West are different from issues on the East or here in Johannesburg. So it is not surprising that people who follow the news know that there are two things for sure: that anything can happen, and SABC News will tell you when it does. Because we keep the nation fully informed. We are SABC News.
Campaign that is as a result of a Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation grant to Good Business in Saatchi, South Africa. We've developed this campaign specifically to encourage the prevention of the bacterium. And this is aimed at people around anybody who coughs, for them to tell the person who coughs, "Hey Bowena, use your elbow." Motivation was really coming from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who are involved in a number of projects in South Africa. And one of the biggest challenges, as previously been said, is TB in South Africa. And the motivation is to affect behavior change, particularly with people who cough and who may be carrying the bacterium. So encouraging people to use the elbow clearly would reduce the spread of that airborne bacterium. Because the bacteria can live for 24 hours plus, you know, when you cough in your hands, you invariably touch hard surfaces or other people's hands, and thereby spreading the bacteria. When you use your elbow, though, it significantly reduces that risk, because most of the bacterium that you coughed out stays on your elbow or on your sleeve. It's such a light-hearted, easy way to get people to change their behavior, and therefore we believe it would be successful.
When you have a cough, or if you have chest pains, think about your friends, think about your friends. When you feel a fever, or if you sweat at night, look out for the signs, look out for the signs. I go when I hate, use your elbow when you cough. I go when I hate, use your elbow when you cough. Hey, hey, Nina, hey, use your elbow when you cough. Hey, hey, Nina, hey, use your elbow.
You'll recall that we said we felt that this is the beginning of a marathon. We also said that there's no doubt that this process is going to push some of us to our physical boundaries. We also said on that day of the 15th of December that in the process, we're no doubt going to learn a lot about each other. 15th of November, that in the process of this marathon, we'll no doubt learn a lot about each other, or a lot more about each other. And then finally, we took a collective commitment that we're going to run a good race and we're going to finish the race. That was on the 15th of November in Mark's building somewhere. We've reached the first third of that leg. by having these one-on-ones, barring maybe 2 members or 3 more, we've by and large reached the first. The second will be, honourable members, that when you depart, some of us will start the draft report on the basis of our hearings to date and have that report available for you to have sight of a few days before the 10th, when we schedule to sit formally as a committee to start deliberating on that report to get to a committee report. Also, yesterday you indicated that there are certain loose ends that we need to tie up. You'll recall that there was a summons issued by this committee for documents. You'll also recall that on a Monday morning I came to report that we had received 400 documents on the Sunday night or the Saturday night before, purportedly in response to the summons. It has just been physically impossible for us to take those documents and tick them off the summons, so that we could say to you categorically, everything we asked for, we've received. It has just been physically impossible to get it on a Sunday night and 5 days later to be able to report to you. So from where we're sitting, those summons still stand until we're satisfied that everything that we asked for has been given to Parliament. And nobody disputed that certain of those documents have not been given. But we're going to try and marry the 400 documents we received a few days ago to the summons. So until we are satisfied, those summons, as far as we are concerned, are still in force. And by the time you come back, we'll probably be able to give you a report of whether we have received them or not. I can say to you now that if we have not received all those summons documents by the time you return, there won't be a discussion about what to do next. We will just take it to the next level, because it will be in defiance of Parliament and a court order. We must just satisfy ourselves that that is the position, and we will not have a discussion about it. We will just take it to the next level if those summons have not been complied with. You also asked us, honourable members, to attempt to get the former board chairpersons Ellen Shabalala and Ben Gubane to come and give their side of the story. We have been able to make contact with Ben Gubane, and he indicates that he's available around about the time we return, the 10th, and we're busy communicating with him as to how we will take that process forward. Ellen Shabalala, we've been struggling to get hold of contact details, but we have now received them, and it's work in progress as well. So, I beg your pardon. The worst case scenario is that we might have to squeeze in those 2 witnesses on the very first day we come, depending on their availability. But what I have instructed the team to do is that we will start drafting our report, and we will just slot in those last 2 inputs so that you have a report. We can't wait until the very end to start, otherwise you won't get it by the 10th. So that really is the roadmap, honourable members, in terms of where we started on the 15th of November to where we're at today, and how we see it going forward to the week of the 10th of December, where as committee we will have to look at our initial base document and strengthen, craft it in the manner that you would like to craft it in. Round about the 15th of January, a few days later, we will send that crafted or a strengthened document to all affected stakeholders and afford those stakeholders 2 weeks to make comments on our base document and to return those comments to us by the end of January. Immediately we've received them, or the deadline for responses has come and gone, we'll reconvene and start crafting the final document, which hopefully we will adopt as a committee and present to Parliament within the time frames that Parliament has asked us to do our job. So that is the way forward. I want to, at this point, acknowledge and thank the backroom staff. You don't have any idea how hard these guys in the backroom worked. So to Cindy and her team, I think it would not have been possible. I've also, and also Cindy says to me, don't forget the transcripts. People at the back, to you also, thank you very much. And also to the people of Parliament that organized the change of venue. Thank you to everybody that made this possible thus far. And of course, we wish all of you all the best for the rest of 2016 and going into 2017. I have instructed the backroom staff, maybe backroom doesn't sound right, but Cindy and her team, I've instructed them to put their phones off as of tomorrow and only put their phones on after the 2nd of January. So you're not going to get hold of Cindy, and if you do, I'm going to be upset with Cindy and her team, because it's just not possible that human beings will work in this fashion and we expect them to be productive when we get back. So don't attempt to get hold of them until the 2nd of January at least. So that is where we're at, honourable members. And of course, from my side, thank you for your cooperation. It just has made life much easier than I thought. So that's the roadmap and where we're at now, and in terms of the way forward. I see Mr. Chauke wanting to say something, as usual. But because, no, Honorable Chauke, please allow me, because somewhere, the Bible says the first shall be last and the last shall be first. We're going to allow all of you 2 minutes. But because Chauke wanted to be first, he's going to be last. We will start with Kwankwa and come this way, and we'll end with Chauke. You've got a maximum of 2 minutes.
Chairperson, thank you very much for this opportunity. Indeed, I think we should start by thanking you for your sterling leadership. You deserve a round of applause. Thank you very much. Colleagues, I think as a collective and as a team, we should pat ourselves on the back for a job well done. And in particular, I want to refer to you as people who started this process. Remember, I joined you recently, but I've been following this process in the media. I think you've done a sterling job. You've done South Africans proud. And I also wish to say, if there were any missteps along the way, we should ask South Africans to grant us atonement, because all those mistakes were made in an effort to try and get to the truth as closest as possible. And I think we have every reason to be proud as Parliament of the way you have worked together, the way we have worked together as a team. No one could tell as to which person came from which political party here. What we did was all in the interest of South Africa and making sure that we all contribute in creating and building a better life for all South Africans. I also wish to take this opportunity to wish you, my colleagues, and the people of South Africa a splendiferous festive season and a prosperous new year. Thank you so much, Chairperson.
Mukwena?
Thanks, Chair.
Remember, you must also, this is not a farewell speech session, also in terms of do you adopt the way forward that we've charted?
It's all, I guess maybe it's best to just thank you first for having been a sterling leader of this mission. And to thank all the political parties for the, I think, amazing cooperation in getting to the bottom of what has happened. To thank the legal team as well, because I don't think we've thanked them for the work that they've done in making things possible for us here. And just to send a message out to the public that we will get to the bottom of the chaos that is now the SABC. And to send a message to all those that have made the SABC the mess that it is, that we are coming for you. Thank you very much.
Chair, thank you. And I agree with the colleagues as well as yourself, including the recommendations that you have made. Just 2 or 3 things that I'd like to add. The first one is, it is unfortunate that we had witnesses who came in this meeting and failed to present their original reports, but instead opted or elected to react to presentations by the rest, which was unfortunate, because one would have expected that each one who came here would have, his input would have been informed by the resolution of the House. So it's a missed opportunity. The other matter that we discussed informally, I would like that we concretely look at the steps that we will take. And I know that you've said everyone should close their phones. I would have thought that our lawyers here would need to look at the differences in the minutes and advise ourselves appropriately as to what action do we need to take against those that under oath have actually lied to the ad hoc. It's a serious matter, and I think we should send a message to everyone that when you come to Parliament, you present a report under oath. What does it mean? And unless we do it, people will just come here and do as they like. And I conclude by saying, Chair, you thank the team in here, but I think we must also extend that appreciation to the rest of the team in Parliament, because, you know, you had people who are supposed to be at home, but they're here to take care of our well-being, clean the environment, and so on and so on. But this morning I got a call from Botswana. This person says, I have been following this work that you are doing. Please remember that whatever you are doing, you are not doing it for your country, but for the rest of the continent. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Swartz.
Chair, may I start also by thanking you and thanking all the staff members for the manner in which you've worked together. For me, as a long-standing member of Parliament, 17 years, it's been an honor to work with senior members, but I've been very disturbed. The revelations have been startling, to say the least. And let us bear in mind, you, Chair, sit on SCOPA as well, 46 billion rand wasteful and irregular expenditure. We see here in this state-owned enterprise as well. I was shocked at the treatment of the SABC 8, and I'm grateful that we were able to raise that as well. The fact of the death threats, the purge of board members that we as Parliament, together with the President, appointed, is again startling. And you see the qualities and the skills of senior executives and board members that have been removed within a short period of them being appointed is absolutely startling. There are many questions still needing to be answered. The multi-choice deal, the Gupta relationship on Morning Live and the subsidy by the SABC. There's so many issues that we'll be deliberating on. But Chair, just to end on a high note, and whilst Parliament needs to accept responsibility as well, which we have done, I think it has been a tremendous encouragement to South Africa to watch members of Parliament across political lines working together. And I want to commend each one of the members here, particularly the majority party, for holding their minister accountable, holding people accountable and exercising oversight. And I believe that this bodes well for the future of our nation. We're ending this year on a high note where Parliament has asserted its authority. We have not taken any nonsense from anyone, and we are grateful for that. So from my side, I want to wish you all a very blessed Christmas and a prosperous New Year, but may justice and righteousness prevail, and may the looters be looted. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, you know, a team is as good as its captain, and I want to thank you very much, Chair. And I know that at some point I gave you a bit of hard time, and I do apologize. It was never intentional. Chair, I do think, though, that we need to restore good governance at SABC, and we must not forget that when those good men and women were purged, they were replaced. And that we will have to address, because we do not want to have a situation where certain people are ruling from the grave. And Chair, I do want to thank South Africans for giving us support to protect South Africa from becoming a mafia republic. We want South Africa to be a good country, and we want South Africa to prosper. And I want to thank all the members of staff and everyone, and I am sure that we will get good recommendations from each one of us once we receive our draft report before the 10th, Chair. I don't know when exactly are we going to receive the draft report, but it will be good if we receive it before the 10th so that we can put forward our comments, and by the time we come to deliberate, we would have had sight of the report. Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much for steering work.
Thanks, Chair. Chair, I want to join my colleagues in thanking you for steering this ship so well. If it was not for your guidance, maybe we would have gone astray. The other thing I want to do is to send a stern warning to all those that are against transformation out there. We were exposed to many things which we would have viewed as humiliation here, but we refuse to be reduced to that. A case at hand is when an official of SABC stood up to apologize here, and thereafter they made a joke out of it. He was given a take 5 by his colleagues. We are serious here. We are urging everybody to take this process serious. Then to my colleagues, I just want to say, as we are looking now, we are seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. We must know it's not necessarily light that is on its own, but somebody with work for us to do. Let's go and relax so that we are ready for that work. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Chair. I'd like to join the other colleagues in also thanking you and the committee staff and Parliament. I also like to thank the rest of the members of this committee, where we put aside our political differences and focused at the task at hand, which was holding a state entity to account. I hope this will spread to other committees of Parliament, and I hope that the members of the executive that have been watching are shaking in their boots, because this shows a new Parliament. In terms, I am a little bit disappointed, Chair, that despite being given the opportunity to do so, the SABC's executives didn't come to this committee to tell their side of the story. So I am hoping that we can discuss as a committee to make sure that maybe James Saguma comes and accounts for the SABC's executives and their actions. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chair. There's still a lot to be done. The job is not yet over. Therefore, in your presentation, you then said, let's focus again on the program. Therefore, the following will have to happen, Chair, that the summons, as we have agreed, that they stand with regard to documents. We don't need that pile of 400 pieces of papers via email. We need each copy of what we have requested to be tabled before this committee as soon as possible, failing to which action must be taken following what the summons says. Number 2, Chair, we have raised the issue of Ben Ngubane, Chabalala, and Sophie Mukwena. As witnesses, we raised the issue of multi-choice. We then said that the issue of multi-choice may not come now because there are other processes that are on. Let's flag it, Chair, so that when we come back, we may want to deal with that particular issue again. The issue of SABC, we want the response on SABC regarding the letter from their lawyer that wrote to us. We wrote back to them. We want the response. In that response, we can then find a slot to give them an opportunity. We want them to come and take an oath and then present themselves accordingly. Now, Chair, this work that we have done, oversight and accountability. We are playing our role as oversight, and I think we have done it so well as a team here. Accountability. I think we must applaud at the same time the minister that we did not drag her, we did not issue summons to her to appear. We just applaud her for her coming here, honoring the invite that we sent as a committee in fulfilling her mandate to account to Parliament. As much as a number of issues that are still going to follow, Chair, we still have to, before the final, even the draft report, identify which witnesses that we still want to call back. There's going to be a need, Chair, if we do an assessment of the report, identify which witnesses that we still want them to come back and account. The issue of minutes, I want to say, Chair, certified copies of the minutes must be submitted, because it's clear that we are dealing with different sets of minutes. So we want certified copies of the minutes as issued by the organization called the SABC. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you also to the staff, as everybody said, and to the fellow members of this committee. I think we are a team that is prepared to work hard, and it is really nice to work with members from different parties. Chairperson, I have to also express my serious concern about the state of affairs at our public broadcaster. We must remember it belongs to the people of South Africa. It is not a state broadcaster, it is a public broadcaster, and everybody should have an interest in what is going wrong at the public broadcaster. We also, through this process, want to restore trust in Parliament as a proper organ that will fulfill its constitutional duty in terms of those sections of the Constitution, and also to uphold constitutional values. I want to agree about the documentation. I would suggest that we also dig a little deeper into the Memorandum of Incorporation to get a copy from CIPRO, at what is registered with CIPRO, because apparently the file got lost. So there is some more work for us to do about verification of documents that will serve before this committee. Chairperson, in conclusion, I would like to thank everybody and say goodbye and good luck and rest well. Have a Merry Christmas and come back refreshed, because this is only, as the Chairperson said, the first leg of our work. Lots more needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Until the 10th of January, go well.
Vincent Smith, very stern chairperson there from the ad hoc committee that will now take a break until the 10th of January. As you know, a draft report will be compiled by the 15th of January and will be circulated to all the affected members and the stakeholders he mentioned. And then 2 weeks later, the stakeholders will give a response to the draft report. And from the 30th of January onwards, the final report will then be compiled, and we will keep you abreast of those proceedings. So you have to stay tuned to your favorite channel. This is the Newsroom. Now, the festive season is upon us again, and people with sinister intentions are already targeting the South African Social Security Agency, SASSA's beneficiaries, with the intention of cheating them through all sorts of scams. Social grant beneficiaries have been inundated with text messages urging them to obtain new cards, which are green in color before January 2017. Now, beneficiaries should be on the lookout for people requesting their personal details as well as card details and pretending to be from SASSA. Now, to talk to us about these issues, we are joined in our Pretoria studios by the General Manager of Beneficiary Maintenance, Pat Naicker from the South African Social Security Agency. A very good morning to you and welcome.
Thank you. And good morning to you as well.
Now, Ms. Naicker, first and foremostly, how would beneficiaries know when something is amiss and it is a scam? Would SASSA communicate with beneficiaries via telephone or text messages?
I think the communications department at SASSA has put out media campaigns, cautioning beneficiaries against deceitful or unauthorized measures by the private sector with regard to changing, swapping, SWOT cards, etc. If beneficiaries are not sure of the information they're receiving or the authentication of it, they should contact the SASSA toll-free line or call center to validate as to whether that information is correct or not. Unless you get an official communication from SASSA itself, no other information from any other party should actually be taken seriously by citizens or beneficiaries.
Now, talk to us about the official communication. What does that entail, and what form will it be in?
The official communication will go through multimedia channels. We use the newspapers. Sometimes it's flagged on television. Other times it's communication through billboard at our local offices, SMSs, information at our pay points, and also information via officials.
So if it is via SMS, how would the recipients know that that is a text message from SASSA?
Well, the message at the end, would say, this is an official communique from SASSA. Obviously, that information can also be easily constructed by third parties, which will be difficult to manage. But we do not so much depend on SMSs as we do through word-of-mouth information using our call centers, our local offices, as well as print media at our local office pay points and service points. And the footprint with regard to these service delivery structures are quite extensive in the community.
So when I receive a text message or a phone call, what should be my first reaction to this communique, to SASSA?
I think first is to take down the details of the official or the person who's calling you, requesting the information. The SASSA line or the call center information, it's a toll-free line. You can call back on the toll-free line to verify and authenticate the information. But we usually advise all our beneficiaries and citizens not to give information over the telephone and not to embark on any changes to their cards, etc., unless they've got confirmation from local offices. In fact, these things should only be done at SASSA local offices. If you want to change your card, change your information, get authentic information, you can only do that at a SASSA local office. You cannot do this at a pay point or a service point or any other place outside a SASSA office.
Now let's talk about the card issue, which is very crucial right now, because people are being texted and told to go and change their SASSA cards for a green card. What is the current color of the SASSA card, and how should people identify these type of scams?
Okay, I did not get a copy of the SASSA card, but the SASSA card is very, very well branded, and it has a SASSA name on the card, and it has SASSA colors.
Yeah, so but they are telling people that they should change to a green card. So the green card is that a fraudulent card, you think?
A fraudulent card. Yes, it's not a SASSA card. It's a fraudulent card. It's not a anything that is issued by SASSA. If it does not have a SASSA name on it and a SASSA logo and the SASSA branding on it, it's not a SASSA card. And now, it's not issued by SASSA.
Yes. Now, do you know how these fraudsters get the beneficiaries' contact details? Is this perhaps an inside job, you think?
It's very difficult. Sometimes they would say that the beneficiaries themselves give this information. But I think many people now, all sources get information about everybody. I mean, including ourselves, we'll get lots of SMSs and calls from many service providers, etc. And we have never given them our information. So similarly, beneficiary information is also circulating publicly. But the SASSA Act categorically says that any service provider of SASSA and SASSA itself cannot divulge any information on beneficiaries to any source without the approval of the
Yes.
beneficiary.
Now, Ms. Naika, in terms of the 2016 Child Gauge report, which revealed that close to 2 million South African children who qualify for a social grant are still not accessing it. Do you know what are the contributing factors and what could be done to overcome this particular challenge for 2 million children out there?
Okay. In 2011, UNICEF had actually analyzed the General Household Survey of 2011, and we at that point found that 2.3 million children were not accessing the social grants. Subsequent to that, SASSA embarked on a series of campaigns. And we did an extensive follow-up study in 2012 to see what the impact of that was on the population, as to whether the exclusion was reduced and inclusion increased. And we did a follow-up study in 2014 to monitor it. SASSA put a range of interventions in place to ensure that the children who were excluded, and we had a good idea as to where the children were that were excluded from the 2012 study. The initiatives or interventions that were put was door-to-door campaigns in the areas that were identified to reach out to these children, reaching registration at health centers, you know, in collaboration with Home Affairs, as well as the Mkonzo, extensive community-wide interventions informing people that if they have not accessed, which if they are eligible and have not accessed the child support grant, you know, they must do so. The follow-up study in 2014 showed that those interventions actually reaped positive impacts, and the exclusion, you know, came down or got reduced from 2.3 million down to 1.8 million. So it seemed like the interventions were actually working. And in 2014, in 2011, the study was mainly concentrated at district level because we could only identify the exclusion at district level. But in 2014, we went much deeper to ward level and identified where those children were excluded. Now, despite the exclusion being 17.5% for the child support grant, this grant is actually one of the most effective programs internationally. You know, in many other countries, the exclusion levels are, or the inclusion levels are at 40%. But in South Africa, the inclusion levels are at 85%. So it's a very, very effective, very, very well-targeted intervention. But at the same time, we are striving for it to be at 100% inclusion, and therefore we are concentrating so intensely to ensure that the 1.8 million children who are still not receiving, who are eligible and still not receiving the grant, do receive it.
Now, that 1.8 million that you're talking about, it's still a large percentage. What are you doing as SASSA to close that gap and making sure that these kids are being taken care of?
Yes, SASSA has now embarked on reactivation mechanisms. We know where the kids are. Previously, we generally targeted the poorest of the poor areas, deep rural areas, because that's where large pockets of poverty prevailed, and that's where the interventions were. But now the coverage in those areas are almost attained. And the problem was mainly an unforeseen one because of migration. They were poor migrating to the inner cities and the outskirts of inner cities. And the extent of the migration was not fully comprehended. But now we understand that issue. So there's active targeting of those children. And also there's self-exclusion by the minority populations.
Ms. Naika, thank you so much for your time. That was the General Manager, Beneficiary Maintenance, Pat Naika, from the South African Social Security Agency, SASSA. Now, as you just heard, close to 2 million South African children, which is, says is 1.8 million, who qualify for social grants are still not accessing it. The 2016 Child Gauge report focused on how the grant has benefited needy children. That report says that 12 million families have benefited from the child grant in the past year. She also mentioned 85%, that's the number that they're looking at. The value of the child grant is 360 Rand per month, per child. Now, to talk to us about this report, we are joined from our Sea Point studios by the senior researcher, Ainsland Delaney, at the Children's Institute at the University of Cape Town. A very good morning to you and welcome.
Morning, thanks very much.
Ainsland, I thank you so much for hanging on there for us and being patient. Now, you heard what SASSA has said and also indicated what they have got currently. 1.8 million children, that's what we have, that she says is currently outstanding and not getting the grant. What's your reaction to that?
So that is the number based on a recent study that was actually commissioned by the Department of Social Development and SASSA and UNICEF. And in that study, they found that the main reasons for caregivers not accessing the grant was mainly because they didn't understand necessarily the eligibility criteria or because they didn't have the correct documentation. And that has been a challenge for a long time. Things have improved and caregivers are able to use alternative documentation now to access the grant. But these challenges continue.
But let's talk about some of those challenges that's confronting South African children. What are some of them today?
I think one of the key challenges is poverty. Levels of poverty, of child poverty in South Africa remain high. And we know that 30% of children, so almost 1 in 3 children, live in households where there's no employed adult. So the high unemployment rate in South Africa has an impact on children, and this is where the child support grant plays an essential role, because it helps families who don't have the financial resources to look after their children. It provides an essential form of income for those households. And it's been shown, there's been multiple studies that show that the benefits of the child support grant in particular, as well as pensions for needy children.
Mm-hmm. Talking about needy children, that figure of 15% of the 2 million that we're talking about, or the 1.8 million rather, is that accurate or is there more that we're not aware of?
I think that is what the most recent research shows. So I do think that is accurate. I think also the research was very useful in showing the geographical location of where the majority of children are who are excluded, and also it shows that it's particularly young children under the age of 1 where the exclusion rate is highest. So that is where the take-up amongst their caregivers is lowest. And that is an area that is of particular concern, because young children in particular need adequate nutrition and support to make sure that they grow and have a good start in life.
Mm-hmm. Now, 360 Rand is not really a lot of money, but have you found, or have the research found, that is adequate and sufficient to provide a child with a healthy upbringing?
So when the grant was introduced, it was intended as a contribution to the costs of raising a child. But we do know that that 360 Rand is below the food poverty line. So although it has many benefits for children in the households who receive the child support grant, that is still not sufficient to meet a child's food needs. It's about equivalent to 12 Rand a day. And so that does need to be complemented by other measures that will support poor families looking after children.
Mm-hmm. Now, the report that we're talking about, SASSA says that before they focused on rural areas, now they're coming to the urban areas. Is that enough being done from SASSA and even from social development to ensure that they cover the entire country and those children in need?
I think a lot has been done over in recent years to address access and the access challenges for many children. And obviously there are still areas that need to be addressed and still more that can be done. But I think that a lot of plans have been put in place, and it is useful to see the follow-up study, to see what impacts have been made and what else needs to be done to address these challenges.
Let me just touch finally on the child grant again. Besides the 360 Rand, is there anything else, according to the report and recommendations that came out of that, that should be given as an assistance to the child in order to become a healthy adult?
Well, looking at the South African child gauge, look specifically at social grants in this particular issue. But I think it's important to recognize that grants alone, they play an essential role for poor families, but grants alone won't reduce poverty. And so other programs like nutrition programs, early childhood development programs, increasing access to those sorts of programs, but also looking at the quality of education. All of these things are important in supporting poor families and poor children to have a good start in life.
Are you confident that we will reach a point where we will end the close to 2 million children that we're talking about that is still not getting their social grant?
I think progress has been made. I think there are a number of reasons why children aren't accessing the grants. And so I think we need to look at those in more detail and look at how to address each of those different areas to make further progress.
Aislinn, I thank you so much for your time and joining us.
Thanks very much.
Now that was the senior researcher Aislinn Delaney at the Children's Institute at the University of Cape Town joining us from our Cape Town studios. We'll take a break and we'll be right back right after that.
And poverty did not deter Mpumi's success.
Being an orphan or coming from poverty or having seen what HIV and AIDS does to a person that you love takes nothing away from you. It means that you are part of a selective few who have had to face a very, very marginalized struggle.
Abuse is a lonely journey that needs compassion.
I came across as a very confident, ambitious person, but behind that mask was somebody who had serious anxiety problems, a person who had knots in their stomach continuously, a person who could be in company and would feel very lonely.
Being away from his birth country did not stop his hunger to succeed.
Boxing was the way out. Turning professional would give me an income. That was the solution to the problems I've had for so many years.
For more inspiring stories, join Bupulong every Friday at 17:30.
Welcome back. It is now time for the sports. I'm Kendall Makamata with the time just hit just after 20 to 12. Our top story, Mamelodi Sundowns' Club World Cup journey has ended with another defeat. The Klurkop side went down 4-1 to Jeonbuk Hyundai FC of South Korea to finish 6th out of 7 teams in the FIFA Club World Cup tournament in Osaka, Japan.
It took just 18 minutes for Jeonbuk to open the scoring from Kim Bo-young. Sundowns goalkeeper Dennis Onyango failed to deal effectively with a cross from the left flank as he punched the ball into the direction of the opponents. The South Africans didn't create as many opportunities as they did in the opening fixture on Sunday. In this encounter, it was the opposition that was frequently in the Brazilians' half with the lion's share of ball possession. And it didn't take long for Jeonbuk to increase their lead. Onyango's slow reaction gifted the Korean Republic side with a goal from Lee Yong-ho after a build-up from a free kick. When on attack, Sundowns were never a threat as they consistently lost the ball in the final third. It was 3-0 at halftime after an own goal by defender Ricardo Nascimento. Pitso Mosimane made one change at the break, bringing on Sibuso Vilakazi for Leonardo Castro. In the early stages of the second half, Sundowns looked more determined. They were rewarded with a goal after some individual brilliance from Percy Tau. Jeanbuk seemed to have exhausted their energy in the first period. It allowed Sundowns to have the ball more often and put in a few good passes together. Musimani would have been pleased with the efforts of his players in this period. It was just unfortunate that they already conceded 3 in the first half. But for his goalkeeper Onyango, it was a tournament that he will want to forget very quickly. Just like most of the goals he had already conceded, the fourth goal was another error that he could have avoided. Lebantuba, SABC News.
Now, bring it all back home. Bidvest and Golden Arrows remain in 3rd and 5th respectively on the log after they played to a goalless draw. In between the two, Polokwane City squeezed themselves into 4th place as they scored a valuable 1-0 win over Chipa United. Now here's what happened in those 2 matches.
Stainclate, who's been playing in more of a central role this season. Little push through here, great chance, tight angle, good block by Gumede. The point you made there, Marks, about Suya, and I think it's true of many of the other younger players, is again a wave of Bidvest attack, ball in, header off the underside of the woodwork in a way, out for the corner.
Nakasibona libhola igolden arrows phakathi boxini asibona la makhanda wasebenza ke lapha ke uDarren Kidd kodwa ke kasuka ingozi asibona wait you stay ibhola ke lingozi ke ngempela kodwa ke laseliphakama ke lapha iduku lakhe umsisi kaMpempe
Lembe back in. Ball, real chance late on. Scrambled to safety by Mzava.
That looks good. That is great. Click, click, bang! Polokwane City make us wait. And, well, when it's time to do it, it's Maluleke who does his thing.
This man is worth his weight in gold for Polokwane City.
What a thunderous free kick. Now here is a quick look at the results from last night. You remember there were 2 matches played on Tuesday, but last night this Kaizer Chief 0-0 draw with Bloem Celtic at the FNB Stadium. Steve Compel is aware, very well aware, that the fans and management are really tired of all these draws. Golden Arrows 0-0 against Bidvest Wits. And Baroka FC losing 1-0 to Free State Stars, and Polokwane City 1-0 against Chipa United. Highlands Park, they pull one back, beating Ajax Cape Town 2-1 at the Makulo. Now having a look at the log standings to see what's happening there. Look at the top 8 on 24 points, 3 points clear of SuperSport United and Cape Town City FC, who are doing fairly well, having won 7 of the 13 matches they've played. Bidvest coming up 3rd, 4th and 5th are Polokwane City and Golden Arrows respectively. Kaizer Chiefs sitting in 6th and Pirates are still in 7th place, having won only 4 matches with a -1 goal difference. You look at the bottom half of the upset premiership. You see in the upset premiership bottom half, Free State Stars are sitting on 15th position with only 11 points, and sharing 11 points with them are Baroka FC, who look like they're keen to go back to the NFD, but it's still early. We're not at the Christmas break yet. Mamelodi Sundowns are in 9th position, having played only 8 matches in the league for the year. Now we look at Cesc Fabregas, who netted a beauty of a goal for Chelsea, who now goes 6 points clear at the top of the EPL, making it 10 wins in a row. And joy all round in Manchester as both City and United register much-needed wins. Antonio Conte's Chelsea side pulled 6 points clear at the top of the English Premier League as Spaniard Fabregas, who came in for Nemanja Matic, curled in from Williams' 40th minute cutback.
Willian into Fabregas, and it's in the corner, past a sprawling Pickford, and they found a way through.
Sensational goal, brilliant. That's what Chelsea do, they hit you on the counter-attack, and they have so many legs and so many bodies going forward.
In Middlesbrough, an Adam Lallana brace and Divock Origi goal, who finding the net for their 5th game in a row, helped Liverpool to a 3-0 victory as the club climbed to 2nd place in the Premier League.
Bitcoin still Mike Lallana in towards Origi. What a goal. 2-0 Liverpool. And a flip from Origi for Mane again. And still, the referees let it go. Origi with the ball into the box. Lallana for 3-0. Couldn't miss from there.
Manchester United, inspired by Zlatan Ibrahimovic, put in a workman's performance.
And Manchester United lead with the last kick
of the first half at Selhurst.
Blind.
Pogba.
Jose Mourinho's side beat a plucky Crystal Palace 2-1.
For Ibrahimovic! 2-1 United!
And the relieved Pep Guardiola was happy with his side's performance as Manchester City bounced back after successive defeats against Chelsea and champions Leicester City by winning 2-0 at home to Watford.
Raheem Sterling, David Silva, that's the end of the game. Manchester City finally get their second goal. They are back to winning ways in the Premier League tonight.
Now coming to age group football, rising star Luther Singh scored a sensational hat-trick and Menzindwandwe weighed in with a double as the South African men's under-20 national team while up to Angola 5-0 in the semi-finals of the COSAFA Under-20 Championships. Victory in the one-sided game saw the hosts book a final date with Zambia. South Africa has now scored 15 goals in 3 games and conceded not a single one. Coach Thabo Senong has attributed the goal-scoring form to his players' confidence and their players' ability to make the correct decisions in the final third. Now, Nigeria's national women's soccer team, the Super Falcons, marched on Parliament to demand the payment of unpaid bonuses for winning Africa's international championship for a record 8th time. The protests came on the day that President Muhammadu Buhari presented to Parliament a record spending plan for 2017. Buhari had congratulated the team via Twitter this month when they beat Cameroon 1-0 to take home their 8th trophy in the Women's Africa Cup of Nations. Since returning to Nigeria on the 4th of December, the players have been camping at a hotel in Abuja and have refused to leave until their demands are met, saying they were promised allowances and bonuses for winning but are yet to be paid.
It's a painful thing. You know, even when seeing these children hanging to protest, I'm not happy at all because these children are trying for our country, not today, not one, not two. Just count the number of cups they have been bringing. So it's a painful thing, as if I should share my tears and cry now. Please, I'm pleading to the government to come to their aid, to pay them their money so that this country can move forward.
It will be a national disgrace for us to say that our men, our people are playing football without nothing for them. So now, let Nigeria, we are pleading on behalf of them. Let Nigeria do something about it.
And that's exactly where we're going to leave it with the sports for the day. We're done with the show, in fact. Newsroom will be back tomorrow morning. What an eventful last week it has been. What with the inquiry out in the parliamentary committee sitting in on all those hearings. Very interesting materials come out of it. And we sure hope to be bringing you more live news and more analysis tomorrow morning. Be sure to come back and join us at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning sharp. From me and the rest of the team, until then, listening to me.